Hi, this is Chris at Clever Unicorn Games and the Unicorn Collective, back with another interview. Today I have games designer Joel Lewis with me. How are you doing today, Joel?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Tell me, Joel, when you are not designing or playing games, what is it that takes up your spare time? What do you like to do with your extra time when you're not as well looking after your children?
Well, at the moment, that pretty much takes it up. I've got two boys, 2 years and 10 months, and an 11-month-old, and that takes up most of my time. So it's that gaming, gardening. Used to play beach volleyball up until COVID kind of hit. So yeah, that's about it, really. Oh, and barbecue. I do love barbecue. As we were talking about before
Yes.
we started recording, I think I had 4 barbecues in a week.
Yep. No, I found, like I was saying as well, found a new love for barbecuing. So it's so easy because we got a gas one as well, so it's so easy. Just connect it to the
Oh,
tank, and away it
so
goes.
it's easy to regulate the temperature. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. So it's like probably quicker than using the oven.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Um, what would you say is your favorite board game?
At the moment, I'm almost ashamed to say that I only played Scythe a couple of months ago for the first time, and absolutely loved it. And I think it
Yep.
was mostly because my main gaming partner is my wife, and Scythe does look quite intimidating on the table. So it's not one that I've really put in front because I kind of imagined it would have taken one glimpse and then just turn the other way. But in saying that, Raiders of the North Sea is a close second, or if not on par with Scythe.
Yeah, I spoke to Shem as well. Yeah, he's an interesting man. A lot of good games under his belt, and yeah, Raiders. I think Paladins is probably. I don't know if you've played it. Paladins of the West is probably my favorite one of his
Yeah,
games. Um,
no, I haven't played Paladins. Architects, but Miko's that art style is just absolutely beautiful. Like it's hard
yeah,
to compare it to anything else.
and the way that they're all kind of linked in by the art as well, even though every game is a completely different beast game wise, but they all still follow that same art style is really nice because you know what you're getting really. Um,
Absolutely.
Great. Scythe, yeah, Scythe's definitely my top three. Love Scythe, always have. I've got the big box with every expansion possible on my shelf.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, because it's just it's definitely a game there, and yes, it does look very complicated, but once you know how it works, it's not too bad because all the actions are there in front of you.
It's Once you've got your head around combination stuff, it's fairly straightforward. Yeah, absolutely loved it the first time, and it's not just because I won by almost double the score, but
But it helps.
but I loved it. It definitely helped it.
Well, it's funny. The good thing about that game is the different ways to win as well. So there's so many different ways that you can, strategize to get your win. Like for instance, like the most memorable game I remember playing was with my business partner Dan and a few other people, and I thought I was doing really well because the score was really good, and I had loads of stars. I think yeah, I finished the game with 6 stars, and I thought yeah, I've got this in the bag. My multiplier for my popularity was really high. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is in the bag. So then we counted up the score. And yeah, after we counted up the score, I was well ahead until I noticed that Dan had collected a huge stack of coins. And he'd collected, I think, 47 coins,
Oh,
which brought
jeez.
him up ahead of me. And I
Yep.
was like, oh no. Just didn't see it coming. He'd just been collecting money the whole time. And because we got the metal coins as well, as he was counting them out, the extra.
It was just a bit more satisfying rubbing it in with the clink, clink,
Exactly.
clink on the
Exactly.
table.
What would you say is your biggest inspiration for making games? What game or what was it that made you start wanting to make games?
Um, it's gonna sound pretty horrible, but I was spending a bit on Kickstarter, and a few of the things that were coming out that were getting funded. I was looking at them, going, I reckon, I can give this a shot. And it wasn't any particular game in that really gave me kind of inspiration. I mean, there's a lot of games that I loved that really got me into the hobby and really kind of appreciating that. Well, I guess I didn't appreciate the design process until I was knee deep in it.
Yeah.
But I kind of was looking, going, this seems like quite accessible. I mean, it's definitely a different beast from when I was first inspired to what it is now. But it was like, well, if I can get good art, if I can get a good mechanic, and it really, actually, no, I'm going to pull back a little bit, I'm going to say probably stuff like Love Letter, some of the and Button Shy, some of the little 18 card ones, because I'd started designing a bigger game. It was okay, you know. I put it back on the shelf. It wasn't great, but then when I kind of looked into it, I was like, well, if I can get something that's a bit smaller, that doesn't have a huge upfront with art assets and stuff like that, then maybe I can get something on Kickstarter and get my foot in the door. Um, so really, it started out with a lot of smaller games where I thought this is potentially somewhere I can head.
Yeah, no, that's a great way that I suggest as well people start. If anybody asks me, because that's how I got into this whole business, was launching a basic card game, just a deck of cards, with a set of rules that I made up and putting it on because it's the easiest way. A simple card game with like a 52 card deck or a 70 card deck or something is probably the easiest way to get into this because you don't have a huge amount of components. The production cost when you do go to manufacturing is pretty cheap. You've got very little, you have to invest in it as well. I mean, the artwork's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely. And I think I was quite naive, really, thinking I was going to publish myself. And obviously, my only signed game at the moment has been picked up by a publisher who's then taken it on. I didn't even consider really approaching a publisher as an avenue. So I was like, no, I'm going to give this a crack myself, and the most feasible way of getting to the market. Whereas a friend in my local game group, he's come up with this. It's a bit of a beast of a game, especially for a first one, but it is fantastic. And I'm like, well, which way are you going to go with this? And he's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm thinking about publishing itself, and I'm looking, going, it's going to be a lot of upfront, but it's great. So
So, in your process of taking Fluttering Souls from your mind all the way to market, have you ever hit a barrier or a hurdle, or a number of barriers and hurdles, if you can think of them, that stopped you dead? And maybe they stopped you for a good long while. And then how did you overcome the barrier?
there was one kind of incident where I'd initially got feedback from a design group, and it wasn't a group where I knew too many people within that community. I kind of went along to it as a bit of an opportunity to try expand, and when I went there were within Australia some quite big names, um, and it was quite intimidating. And then when I sat down, and at this point, I had developed the theme and I kind of had developed the backstory. And this game was like your first game that you really start to roll with. It was my baby, and I got some pretty brutal feedback. With like one person actually went to the point of saying that I'm all for people creating games at home, but this isn't really a product. I don't think you're ever going to be able to take this to market, and I don't think you're ever
Oh,
going to be able to get this into stores. I was like, oh,
did
okay.
they tell
That's
you why, or is that all they said?
they said because it was small, and I think because it potentially wasn't their thing, but
Yeah.
that was pretty rough to hear, and I kind of walked away from that event going, what what am I getting myself into? Like I've already committed this far, and to have people within the community say you ain't got nothing here,
Yeah.
it was pretty disheartening.
Yeah. What did you do when you heard that? So what was it that did you change it in any
Um,
way, or did you just keep powering on with what you had?
well, that weekend I actually was presenting it at PAX. And at this point, I thought I'd had a finished product and I was going to start creating an email list. And I was trying to generate a bit of hype. And there are a few guys, I mean, that's one person. And I got a few bits of negative feedback, but it was, most of it, except for that one, was kind of water off a duck's back. But the hobby and the industry being what it is, there were so many more positive people that really helped uplift that. Like when I was trying to demo this game, there was a bloke who I'm actually quite good friends now with. He was bringing people back. He was going off and saying, "Oh, you need to come and check out this game. It's beautiful. It's quick. It's plays great." And I ended up with a decent email list. And then come the Sunday, I'd actually been approached by the publisher who demoed it at that game at that convention and said, "We're interested in signing this." So it was very polarizing weekend.
Yeah.
Come the Thursday night, I was like, "What am I doing?" Like,
Yeah.
but
That's kind of important as well, is to let other designers know that yes, you will get lots of different feedback. You'll get good feedback, you'll get bad feedback, and you will get people that just straight out hate it. That it happens. You can't please everybody. Your
That
job is to
that particular
filter it out.
100%. That particular person didn't give me much other feedback, and there was no constructive criticism about how I can improve it and change it and make it better to be able to polish it. It was just, and that's where you got to. I think a lot of people got to understand that. Not, yeah, like you said, almost verbatim. I'm going to quote it, but not all feedback is good feedback,
Yeah.
and you have to pick and choose what's suitable to where you want to go with your design. And realistically, yeah, retrospectively, like my game is like 36 cards, 5 tokens, and 2 players, and takes 20 minutes. It's not going to appeal to somebody whose favorite game is Lisboa.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's
or
not
it may do, but
it's not a
it's
it's not a Twilight Imperium fans game.
no, no, probably not.
um, why is it that you make games? What is it that drives you to make games? What is your end goal from making a game?
Um, to be able to emulate the experience that I have when I play games with others, to have those emotional moments like you and I were talking about with Scythe, to think that something I created may have created that kind of tension and that kind of enjoyment for other people. But initially with Fluttering Souls in particular, like I said, the one that I published, it actually helped in a grieving process. So the first couple of games I designed was kind of really just dabbling, but I really threw myself into it after my wife had her third miscarriage. So it was really a form of bereavement and grieving for me to put some positive energy into something.
Yeah, I've been there as well. We have had a miscarriage in the past, and it's not as easy as anybody not in that situation might think it is, because it is kind of you do kind of think of it as a child, even though it might not be that far along. So
Oh,
yeah, I get what you're
are you
feeling with that.
okay?
What you were feeling.
Yeah, it's tough. You're kind of mourning the loss of what you thought your life was going to become, um, and then yeah. Anyway, but
Um,
it was, and that game was very helpful.
yeah, the creation process itself is such a tonic for lots of different things, isn't it? When you're making something, and especially when you give that to somebody in prototype form and you can see them thinking and enjoying it, that's the best thing for me. You can see them getting invested with it. That's the best thing. Rather than sometimes you'll take a
you,
prototype that isn't very,
you see that,
yeah, you'll take one that isn't very
yeah,
good
you
to
see
them.
the cogs turning and they're going, yeah.
Yeah, it's worse. Yeah, when you take one that you think, oh, this is gonna be great. You take that and they just look at it and they're like, no, no, that's no good. Because the amount of games that I've got in folders that will never see the light of day.
You're seeing they're going, yes, Nick's. I think there's a really good like little animation about it. It's like Nick spilled a Yaris, and then like the game just explodes,
Yeah,
and it doesn't. It doesn't do at all what you thought, and they break it in the first
yeah.
like 4 turns. Like,
And I've got a couple of friends that love breaking them as well, and they take great glee in breaking them, which is good because you want friends that'll try and break it so you can fix it. But at the same time, do they have to be so smug about it?
well, it is good. You need to figure out those, yeah.
Um, have you ever played a game that you really didn't like, and you don't have to name it, but what was the mechanic or the theme, or what was it about that game that put you off completely?
Look, this game is big enough that I don't think it really matters my opinion about it. I really did not like Blood Rage.
Oh, right, okay.
Um, and that's only because I like games where you make something pretty and you make something and you look back at it. I mean, games like Planet, not going to appeal to a lot of people. And, oh, it's just a gimmick. But I really like looking at it going, oh, this is something I've made and I've got these animals that come to me. Whereas Blood Rage, I start going, yeah, I'm making progress. I'm going, and then it's gone. I'm like, ah, I've invested so much in that monster.
Yeah, another problem. Now, I enjoy a game of Blood Rage because it is short and it's kind of unobtrusive. It's a game where you can play and you can have a laugh with it. But yes,
No,
not
absolutely.
only that, there is the issue with the balancing as well. So even though it's a drafting game, that is so easy for somebody who's played before, especially, to just draft the perfect set of cards, so that they will be head and tails miles ahead of you when the end game scoring comes round. But luckily, it's not a game that takes too long to play, so you can kind of forgive those sort of things. But yeah, I can understand your frustration. I preferred Rising Sun. I always thought Rising Sun was a better better game. What was that? What advice would you give to a new designer coming into the business? So they've got the idea in their head and they're going to make a game. What is your advice to them?
Um, get really involved in some of the blogs and some of the information and the resources that are available to everybody. I mean, our industry is unreal in the sense people want to help you to make a better game because they want to enjoy what you've made. So you have Jamie Stegmaier's blogs, James Matthey's blogs, rest in peace. And there's one that's Board Game Designers Forum, which is a separate website, which will people blog their kind of journey and just make use of what's out there and get involved in the community and ask questions. Like I said, it's very unique in the sense of we want you to make a good game because we want to play it and enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much for coming and speaking to me today, Joel. This has been brilliant.
No worries. Cheers for having me.